welcome to Futorials, a conversation with your favorite Fusion members beyond the stage. I'm Jamia Spate, and I'm one of the co-directors of Fusion Dance Group.
And I'm Brianna Ochoa, and I am the secretary for Fusion Dance Crew. And today we are going to be talking about how to transition from being in a studio to being on a dance crew like Fusion.
I know we were both at a studio before Fusion, so what are some of the big differences that you've seen since you've made the transition?
I would say the biggest thing was honestly just structure. The structure of Fusion as a whole is just so new compared to my time at a dance studio. Like practices, performances, it was everything.
No, yeah. To give a little background of what my studio was is that 3 to 4 days a week we would do just technique, so stretching, ballet, maybe a little across the floor, maybe some turns here and there, and then the weekends were designated for learning choreography, for learning dances. And we didn't learn a dance in a day, we learned a dance throughout multiple weekends, across multiple months, and then we would eventually perform those maybe 5 times total until we got to nationals, and then we'd be like, all right, that's the end of that dance, let's go.
Yeah, and then Fusion is completely different. I remember when I got the callback saying oh, you made the team. They were like, oh, so be prepared for practice. We do Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, 2 hours each, 9 to 11 p.m. And I was like, oh, okay. Just practices being longer. When we're learning our choreo, it's done in an hour. And you're like, how am I supposed to actually know this? And then we have to be ready to perform it for auditions.
Exactly.
And even to even be a part of it once it comes to the performance. So having choreographers having office hours, choreographers being our peers was also a really big thing, because I remember when I auditioned and Alosu was teaching us the piece that we were going to be auditioning, and I was like, oh, so are you way older? Did you come in? And yet when I get on the team, it's Alosu's one of the members. I was like, wait, what?
No, exactly. It's crazy because you get that call. First of all, we get the call on a Sunday, and then they're like, all right, can you come to practice tomorrow? Come before practice a little early. We have a 2-hour practice tomorrow night. Be ready to dance. But ultimately, the good thing is that they know what the transition period is. They know that people who've come from a studio, they're gonna have to get used to it. They tell you right off the bat. They're like, you have to audition for these pieces. Yeah, you made it onto the team, but you need to prove yourself even further. And they're like, okay, we'll audition, and there's a good chance you won't make it onto all of them.
Yeah.
It's very honest, but it's just you need that honesty. You crave it.
Right.
When you find out that Alosu is on the team and on the board and not just an outside choreographer, you're like, wait, I'm so used to being a 40-year-old woman teaching me these dances, and to know that you have room for growth in a dance team, it's you start at the bottom and you go to the board like we did. We're secretary and co-director. But I think another one of the big differences is how much you pay for a dance team versus a studio.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh my gosh. I remember when I finally quit dance competitions, and my parents were literally doing a happy dance because they're like, oh, we don't have to pay thousands of dollars. It's just so expensive.
It's ridiculously expensive. And no one talks about it because when you think about it as a child, this is a sport, this is a hobby, just like someone playing the piano, playing the violin, baseball, basketball, all those sort of things, and they maybe pay $100, if that. We pay thousands of dollars in the span of months between costume fees, competition fees, entry fees, that all that money, and it's just absolutely crazy. And I appreciate my parents for paying all that because they knew I wanted to dance, but I'm sure they're thank goodness she's done. Now they pay for college, so I guess it's not that much better, but
oh man, yeah. And a lot of the times the costume fees and makeup and hair fees are just for us to look exactly the same.
Exactly, and they just don't understand that we can't all look the same. You and I don't look the same, but we look a lot closer than some of our team members who are white and who are the basic build, and they have the long straight hair and they have the blue eyes. We can't look like them without putting in some major work.
Right.
Without wanting to straighten our hair every single day. The heat damage I got from being in a studio dance team is crazy because I always wanted to look like them.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember there was this one time. Oh yes, okay. So there's this one time that it was like when I first joined the dance competition team. Like our dance teacher like sat us down and gave us like a makeup tutorial, and she was like, "Yeah, use all these products. This is how I want your makeup to look, and like it looks great on my skin tone." And I'm like, "But we don't look the same. So like, how am I supposed to match you with those same exact products?"
Yeah, no, exactly. Because I would get, okay, we're going to put on this bubblegum pink lipstick. And I'm like, that's not going to look good on me. And it was to the point where my mom would take it off of me and be like, you're not wearing that. Like, they're not going to notice. They're going to just think it's because you're black. But like, you're not wearing that color. It does not look good on you. Mm-hmm. And so it's just hard to deal with those different expectations. Like, they expect you to be one person. They say they're understanding to everyone, but when it really comes down to it, they're not as considerate when it comes to like even the smallest of differences.
Yeah, especially when we're talking about like the different body types, because in the dance world there's this very like perfect looking body type of like being very skinny, having really long legs, being super flexible, things like that, and you try your darndest to fit into this sort of mold, and you end up getting like really bad habits that you still have to recover from to this day.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh, it's just crazy that like there's so much more that goes into the dance world that doesn't really need to even be there. And like I'm really glad with Fusion I didn't have to worry about that, because instead of like having like this perfect model or whatever of dance, we're more on like expressing ourselves with dance and like embracing our diversity and just like embracing who we are as individuals.
And that's such a great thing that we can do that on Fusion now. But as coming from a studio, it's hard to transition into if you're not prepared. Like you said, there's still battles you have to deal with. And I remember my first audition with Fusion, this is like straight after my competition dance phase. And so I'm like, all right, let me make sure I wear this so that like they can see me. Or when I walk in that room, I'm not going to talk because I don't want them to think I'm disrespectful. I'm going to make sure my hair is in a high ponytail because I don't want it in my face. I don't want them thinking I don't care about my appearance or anything like that. And it's relieving that I don't have to do that anymore, but that's just how I've been taught this, how years and years of studio dance has drilled in my brain, like, make sure you look like this model. And my definition of looking perfect was looking like some of those white girls in my studio.
Yeah, I definitely felt very similar with that, and like I definitely really appreciate that I at least had like some sort of background, because like when I was on the studio, I was classically trained, like ballet, jazz and contemporary a bit, but like I was hardcore ballet. And so, but I mean I did have like some like instances of like learning hip hop, and so it definitely made me like more confident once I did audition. But that was definitely a transition that I had to do from like being ballet, having to project upwards, and then having hip hop or like all these other like more like street styles being more flexible and like the body movements and everything, levels, groove, completely different.
Exactly, like you said, it's all about that flexibility and not like, oh, I can put my leg over my head, I can do a back and spin, I can jump down into a split. People do that at our auditions. They whip out those flexibility moves, and like while it's great to see, we want to see that you can roll with the punches. We want to see that you can do a hardcore, fast hip hop and then slow it down to more contemporary thing.
Right.
And so that's definitely something like Fusion, we move very fast.
Yes. I remember when I was first on the team and we were learning pieces, I definitely had to like deal with the transition of going from like when you're in a studio, you're learning just like one like cohesive piece. But then on Fusion, we were learning like 4 or 5 different small pieces in like our 1 hour time slot, and then like making this like mashup of like all these pieces with different styles and different like points to like hit on, and then having this like one mashup be like a cohesive like set. Yeah. So like it was just like so interesting, because I definitely had to transition with that, and then also the fact that like pieces were 6 minutes long, versus like our 2-minute max. Like, oh my gosh, the cardio that we did, it was a lot. I mean, granted, we weren't always on the stage the whole entire like 6 minutes, but like I definitely appreciated like the transition time that we had and like having like cardio warm-ups like before practices, so that like I'm not dying on the side of the stage like having an asthma attack or something.
Yeah, like you said, we do the cardio, we do the practices, we run, and we move all that. We move very fast. We stress. We probably, as a board members, we probably yell at the team to do more, to give us more, to practice more. We do all this stuff, and then we go to our showcase. We spend 6 minutes on stage. We end it, and we're like,
"What's next?
What's next? Like, what are we gonna do next?" And with Fusion, I know a lot of times we use a piece, and then we like throw it out, and we're like, "All right, we're done with that. Let's go on to the next one."
Right.
Whereas, like, as a studio, we were always like, okay, we're gonna work on this dance all year long.
Right.
Like, yeah, you might do 2 dances, but you worked on those 2 dances all year long. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until the end of the year nationals, when you're about sick of hearing the song, that you're like, okay, it can go now.
Yeah. And then also just the idea that, like, of course, like with studios, like our big thing is either like competitions or like our final like year-end recital. Yeah. Versus with Fusion, we do competitions.
We do, yeah.
We do some competitions, but a lot of the things like in our like dance community are like just like showcases.
Yeah, they're definitely not the same. Like, we don't sit on stage and wait for awards, or it's not like a 3-day competition process. Like, it's like okay, you went that day, you performed, and if you're waiting for any results, you get them that same day.
Right.
Because we don't have time to be there all weekend.
I know. We're students first.
We are students first. Number 1 rule on Fusion: you are a student first, a Fusion member later. Because if you're not a student, you can't be on Fusion.
True. So I think that's all the time that we have for this episode. If you liked anything that you heard from our conversation, maybe it's time for you to check out a dance crew and think about joining, maybe Fusion. But we just wanted to thank you for watching this video, and please like and share, and keep on the lookout for our next video by subscribing to our YouTube channel.
And we'll see you next time.
1, 2, 3.
Fusion love. They grew them in the womb, but now they're dealing with them outside.
Let's interview a baby.
Let's interview a baby. Let's get in the mind of a baby and see what's happening. I'm waiting for you to say you're frustrated.
Oh, I already did.
Oh.
Yeah, no.
Not like, I can put my leg over my head, I can do a backwards bend, I can jump down into a split. People do that at our auditions. But like people, meaning Lauren.
And it was just so interesting.
You said you can do that one. Rewind it.
I'm going to repeat this because I forgot our little sentence.
You got it.
Okay.
Cute.
Okay,
Okay,
yes.
okay. If you want any type of Fusion merch, you can get it at our Etsy page. Link is on our Facebook, most likely. I don't know. Oh, it's on the website that we have, which is on our Facebook.